Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable women get talking about themselves? We can list our flaws in seconds, but ask us what we're proud of, and suddenly, crickets. Like, we have nothing to say. And I do not believe this is because we're not accomplished. I think that we've been taught as women that the moment a woman acknowledges her own success and is actually proud of it, she's suddenly arrogant. One of the biggest scams sold to us women is that shrinking ourselves, aka being humble, makes us a good person. And I truly wonder what our lives would look like if we had the audacity of men. And before you come at me, I mentioned this comparison because it is necessary, okay? I do not dislike men, I actually like men. So this is not anything like that. But truly, if we had the audacity of men, if nobody had ever called us too much, or if nobody has ever made us feel guilty for being proud of ourselves, or made to feel selfish for thinking for ourselves and for wanting more. Like this phrase, tell me it doesn't sound familiar. Do not think too highly of yourself. Like, why the hell wouldn't we? I grew up in a small town in Malta, which is already a small island. So if you come from a small place, you would know how it works. Like, everyone is up in each other's business. So I feel like there's more caution with families, like to avoid scandals and like how their kids grow up. I still remember this episode, like it lives rent-free in my head. And I say this with love because I love my mom so much and I know she did it from a good place. Like she did not mean anything bad from it, because my mom is one of the most humble people you will ever meet, okay? And I remember, anyway, we were outside primary school and it was exam period and my mom was talking to this other parent and I overheard her saying, I don't want my daughter to be better than other kids. I just want her to be like other kids. Now, I could see where she was coming from now, but back then, when I think about it now, I truly hurt for my younger self because I can see how that shaped me to blend in when I grow up, when I was growing up, and to dim my light. Also, think how many times have you been praised growing up as a woman for being humble rather than being confident? And how many times have you heard women being called arrogant for being more out there and for acknowledging their own success? Maybe even from family members. Like I know I did from some of my family members when a woman was, when I say out there, it's when she's very open about her success. Like she speaks openly about her work, about money. Like even if she wasn't bragging, she was looked down upon. Whereas if a man did it, again, I mentioned this comparison because there is a huge discrepancy between how men show up in terms of audacity and how women show up. Although I feel like, thank God, it's slightly changing now because there's more awareness, but still not enough. Like you've never heard of men being called too much for being audacious, for going after it, relentless. If anything, they are praised for it. If a woman does it, she's called selfish. And as children, we don't just listen to what is said to us. We watch what is said about other people, about other women. And maybe nobody ever called you arrogant, but you would have heard someone talking a certain way negatively about a woman who was out there, and you as a child, you would absorb that without even knowing, because when we're growing up, our brain absorbs like a sponge, which is why as children we are able to pick up a language just like this, and then it's harder when we become adults. But from 0 to 8, our brain is like a sponge at a stretch to 14. But those early years, we're just taking everything in. Even if we're overhearing a conversation, we're still being affected and we're still being conditioned from that conversation. So your brain would take notes and it would associate shining and pride with rejection and being disliked. And as children, our brain is not thinking in terms of, oh, I must become successful. All it is trying to do as a child is to be accepted and to belong. Because as a child, acceptance, however that looks like, acceptance equals safety. So imagine every time you go to celebrate yourself or you hear someone celebrating themselves and then you hear other people saying, oh, be humble or don't brag, your brain is going to create a rule, which is next time, do not celebrate yourself. And this is not because you're insecure or you're shy or you're not confident, but because your brain is trying to protect you from rejection. And that is taken with us into adulthood. And this is why so many women do not even realize that they're still doing it, because it's become so automatic. Like, think of the time when someone compliments you. Before you even think what to say, you just go, oh, this old thing, or oh, I must have been lucky, or it wasn't even that hard. Like, come on. Again, I bring up men. When men are complimented, do you hear them saying all these things? No, they just say thank you and shut the fuck up. I remember this is taking me to an episode when I was still living in Dubai. I met with one of my friends and she was like, oh my God, like, I love your makeup. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And it almost slipped. I almost said, I love it as well, but I just stopped at thank you. And later she said, I can see you've changed because you didn't deflect my compliment. And I didn't even realize that I did it until she mentioned it. But I was just like, yeah, you're right, I didn't. And before, I was so used to like deflecting compliments or felt like I needed to return it. If you do not believe that you are allowed to acknowledge your own value, okay, like let's say you have a business, how do you expect other people to pay for what you are offering if they don't even know what a good job you are doing? I remember in my first business, my mentor had to push me to celebrate my wins or to share my client wins because God forbid I came off as bragging. Like, thinking about it now, it's like, it doesn't make sense, but your brain is not thinking, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like, even if every time you acknowledge your own brilliance, then you immediately feel guilty or feel shameful, how are you going to post that content? How are you even going to apply for that promotion? How are you even going to raise your prices? How are you going to speak on stage if that is what you want? Like, of course you won't, because success isn't even the scary part. Getting there isn't the scary part. It's the judgment that you fear might come from doing it. And I would love nothing more than to flip that for you today, because I don't think pride is something that you need less of. If anything, I think you haven't had enough of it. Maybe the woman you're trying to become does not need another qualification, another promotion, or another 10 years. Maybe, just maybe, she's waiting for you to stop feeling guilty every time you recognize your own worth, to stop apologizing for taking up space, to stop apologizing for your success. Because if you even cannot be proud of yourself and what you've accomplished, how can you expect others to be?